Hello friends, a very warm welcome to everyone among you. In our earlier talks, we started a journey of the brief surveys of the geographies and cultures of the countries from where we have taken the texts of our course on new literatures in English. In the first leg of the journey, we toured through Canada and the Caribbean, while in the Caribbean we had our focus on Trinidad simply because that is the island from where we have picked up one of our texts. In this leg of our journey, we will make brief surveys of the histories and cultures of South Africa and Nepal. With a total area of 1,221,037 square kilometers, the Republic of South Africa occupies the whole of the southern tip of the continent of Africa. With a distance of 3,777 kilometers south from the equator, South Africa is a beautiful country in the southern hemisphere with a distance of 6,247 kilometers from the South Pole. In both geographical and cultural terms, South Africa, along with 90% of the Latin America and the continent of Australia, is an important part of the global South. Before taking a cursory look at the history of the country, it would be appropriate and necessary to point out that the paleoanthropological limestone caves at Gauteng, where the earliest human fossils of Paleolithic age were first found, are just around 50 kilometers from Johannesburg in South Africa. Registered by the name of Fossil Hominid Sites of South Africa, the caves are listed among the World Heritage Sites recognized by UNESCO. The oldest discovered human fossil was discovered here in 1947. The fossil, a full skull, is estimated by the anthropologists to be around 2.5 million years old. It is singularly for this reason that the site and the area got nicknamed the cradle of humankind. With a coastline of around 2,600 kilometers on the South Atlantic Ocean on the west and Southwest Indian Ocean on the south and the east, South Africa is a land of huge amount of geographical and cultural diversity. Much of this coastline is narrow, forming the great escarpment all along, on the inland side of which there are plateaus covering 2/3 of the South African land. The extensive central plateau is the highest at around 3,400 meters above sea level in the east, sloping towards the southwest, with the lowest heights in the range of 1,500 to 2,000 meters. On the south and southwest, the plateau gives way to the Cape Fold Mountains in the coastal region. Climatically, the country has an entire range from the arid areas in the northwest bordering Namibia and Botswana to the warm and temperate Mediterranean zones in the middle, to the humid subtropical territories toward the northeast, and to the temperate oceanic coastline in the south and southeast. Quite understandably, this big range of climatic zones of the country accounts for the big range of biodiversity in South Africa. To understand the richness of the biodiversity of the country, it would suffice to mention that the number of the species of wild animals and the birds in South Africa is larger than their number in Europe and Asia together. For general interest, let's also note that among the wild animals South Africa is known for are giraffe, the world's tallest animal, cheetah, the world's fastest running animal, eland, the world's biggest antelope, Kori bustard, the world's heaviest flying bird, and the leatherback turtle, the world's heaviest reptile. One can begin talking of the cultural diversity of South Africa by stating that it has at least 10 very well-known ethnic groups: the Zulu, the Xhosa, the Sotho, the Swana, and the Pedi being the major among them. Not surprising, therefore, that the country has 11 recognized official languages. there are more subdivisions inside of these different ethnic groups and their different cultures. Since each of these ethnic groups claims their own separate identity, to call South Africa one country could be misleading. Robert Ross underlines the differences among and within these ethnic groups when he writes that calling the country a single nation is more of a programmatic statement, a pious hope instead of a statement of fact. However, unlike in some other countries of the continent, the differences among the tribal communities in South Africa haven't had any disintegrating effect on the country. A very obvious reason for this absence of tribal conflict among these many ethnic groups in South Africa is the long history of the colonization followed by the decolonization and the apartheid regime there. The history of the colonization in the territories of South Africa begins with the setting up of a camp at the Cape by the Dutch East India Company to replenish supplies and offer rest to the sailors on their ships on the spice route. As the nomadic ethnic community there were not agriculturalists, the Dutch began to bring farmers from their homeland to cultivate the fertile areas in the Khoi territory. Soon, the number of these farmers increased and the area under their occupation increased too in proportion. Historians, therefore, say and believe that the modern South African state is a lineal descendant of Van Riebeeck's settlement. The same settlement, however, can also be seen as the beginning of a very long resistance by the natives of the land, because the Khoi, the native inhabitants of the territory, aligned with the San tribe of the mountains to start a prolonged guerrilla warfare with the Dutch settlers. The whole of the 18th century saw repeated attacks by the natives on the farms and their European farmers. During the same period, the colonizers brought slaves from places like India, Indonesia, Madagascar, and the other parts of Africa. Near the end of the 18th century came the end of the Dutch occupation of South Africa as a sort of the fallout of Napoleonic wars. The British took the Cape Colony effectively in 1805 from the Dutch, who had been losing parts of the Kingdom of Holland to France, and the sovereignty of the British over the colony was officially accepted by the European powers at the Vienna Congress in 1815. Of the most serious resistance the British faced in South Africa came from the Boers, who were the early European settlers of Dutch, German, and French descent. The resistance was so serious that the British had to agree to accept the independence of Transvaal as a free state in 1852. From 1852 to 1902, the territories under the Boer occupation were internationally recognized as the South African Republic, which we wouldn't confuse with the present-day Republic of South Africa. The British were forever in the conflict with the South African Republic of Boers. There were two wars between the British and the Republic from 1880 to 1881, known as the First Boer War, and from 1899 to 1902, known as the Second Boer War. The Second Boer War brought an end to the South African Republic, and the territories in the occupation of the Boers fully became parts of the British Empire as the Union of South Africa in 1910. An ignominious chapter in the history of South Africa began in 1948 with the introduction of apartheid regime by the National Party that came to office in the year. Though racial segregation had long been practiced in the country as, in the words of Saul Dabo, an amalgam of political, ideological, and administrative strategies designed to maintain and entrench white supremacy at every level. From 1948 to 1992, when apartheid came to an end is a familiar history for many of us. To quote from the archives of the website of the US Department of State, the effects of the internal unrest and international condemnation led to dramatic changes beginning in 1989, leading to democratic elections for the country in 1993, that in turn led to the election of Nelson Mandela as South Africa's first black president in 1994. The beauty of South African literature grows from the immensely varied experiences of the many native and settler communities that have been interwoven through creolization, the result of the daily contexts varying from genocide to lovemaking. The text from South Africa that we will take up for study is J.M. Coetzee's Disgrace, which was first published in 1999. Winner of the Booker Prize for the year, the novel is a subtle mixture of individual ideologies and racial tensions still seething in the post-apartheid South Africa. Friends, in this part of this talk, we have sought to familiarize ourselves with the distinctive geography, history, and uniquely mixed culture of South Africa, with just a few introductory words about Coetzee's novel Disgrace. See you in the next part of the talk.